Therefore, turn your mind upon the salt, for it alone, that is the mind, the salt is the mind, is the science concealed and the most excellent and the most hidden secret of all the ancient philosophers. Therefore, direct your feelings, senses, and reason and thoughts upon this salt alone. What's the salt? According to the quote, the mind. All right, with that background, I'm now going to read the quote from Richardus. Therefore, all those who desire to attain the blessing of this art should apply themselves to study, should gather the truth from the books and not from invented fables and untruthful works. There is no way by which this art can truly be found except by completing their studies and understanding the words of the philosophers. Bernardo of Treviso tells us how he struggled in vain for many years till at last he was led on the right path through finding a particular work, and the work was the Parmenides, a sermon in the Turba. Here's the quote from Bernard. He should collect the books of different authors, because otherwise it's impossible to understand them. He should not throw aside a book which he has read once, twice, or even 3 times, although he has not understood it, but he should read it again and again and again, 10, 20, 50 times, or even more. At last he will see wherein the authors are mainly agreed. Here the truth lies. It's owing to the now this is I'm quoting Young. It's owing to the ignorance of men, right? Who are not able to accomplish the work until they've studied universal philosophy, which will show them things that are unknown and hidden from others. Quote now from Lully. Therefore, our stone belongs not to the vulgar, but to the very heart of our philosophy. Therefore, says this great Lully, we must devote, the object then is to devote oneself to the study of the books of the old philosophers and to acquaint themselves or himself with the very material of philosophy, which is Parmenides. Richard Angelicus again, turn back to the way of truth of which you're ignorant. I counsel you for your own sake to study and to labor with steadfast meditation on the words of the philosophers, whence the truth can then be summoned forth. Now this is Carl Jung. The importance of or necessity of understanding and intelligence is insisted upon through all this literature, not only because intelligence above the ordinary is needed to the performance of so difficult work, but because it's assumed that a species of magical power capable of transforming even the brute matter dwells within the human mind. Dorn says, this is another alchemist, in truth, the form, which is the intellect of man, is the beginning, middle, and end of the whole process. Well, I selected these quotes to try to show you that people who were leading thinkers in this alchemical movement, were they not? They were doing several things. Number one, they sought to gain the books of the philosophers. They were just being translated from Chino. Get the books of the philosophers. Intently study them. Make them the object of attention. Intently study them many, many, many times. The Chinese have a great line, the Taoists have a great line. If you want to study a work, make sure you've studied it at least 100 times. You can understand anything if you read it 100 times. All right, third step. It becomes an object of meditation. Bernard of Treviso goes right along with this, and he goes one step further. He says the key work that he found, which turned him around, was a sermon on Parmenides. And Parmenides is that great author of the whole thought dealing with the nature of reality as one. Therefore, alchemy was the contemporary way of studying classic philosophy. It was coming into the West at that time, disguised to escape the injustices of the Inquisition. They had a purely intellectual way of doing it, and they sought, according to Bernard of Treviso and Dorn, the whole object is to awaken the intellect. Turn the intellect around. When you do that, when you're involved in that quest, you're awakening first understanding, and you're following the words, and that is the Logos. As that becomes a conscious effort at coming to grips with yourself and the nature of mind, not the particular individual mind, but the nature of mind, that becomes naturally, it moves from the Logos to an object of meditation. A natural object of meditation, because it's the focus of all your energies. You're using understanding, you're training the mind, and you're awakening the intellect. Now you might say, now going back to it, how can Jung therefore be so indifferent or at times hostile to the whole idea of metaphysics? He knows, as he said in many other places, that he has to stay within the confines of the human psyche or he becomes a philosopher. And in one work, by the way, he said there are times when he calls himself a philosopher rather than a psychologist. So if you need that quote, I have it.
Is that because he didn't want to, why wouldn't he want to be a philosopher?
What did we say? The boundary? What's the boundary?
Well,
what's the boundary? That's right. When you're philosophical, what are you doing? You're making a claim that there's something real, independent, above, supra-personal. Supra-personal, is that right? Is that then within the psyche? Conclusion?
So you want to make a judgment about what is real?
Well, if he did, if something real is pardon me?
Yeah, if something was real outside, then it would be transpersonal, it would be beyond.
And therefore, as far as he's concerned, he made a deal with psychology. Why psychology has to do that is another issue, by the way. It may not have to, but we're talking about these great thinkers that have promulgated these systems. And I thought, therefore, it would be important to say that the real goal of philosophy is this. This is still the ancient goal of philosophy. It's now back in the West for the first time since the 15th century. It was gone for 1,000 years. And therefore, returning to it, that becomes alchemy when it's hidden. When it's overt and not hidden and displayed, then it becomes a Neoplatonic quest, because that is what Neoplatonic thought is.